We are gathered here in our studio in Santa Fe and soon to be connected in Maui with Ram Dass in a most auspicious occasion. A celebration of the 40th anniversary of Ram Dass's seminal, germinating book of transformation, Be Here Now, published by the Lama Foundation right here in New Mexico. I would say a significant revolution in consciousness was going on at the time, bridging the 60s and the 70s, and Ram Dass's book capturing his story, starting with his expulsion from Harvard to his journeys in India, meeting Neem Karoli Baba, and as he is affectionately called, Maharaji, fueled the flame of Ram Dass's awakening and millions of readers to follow. Today is also a cusp in a way, preceding the release of Ram Dass's new book with Rameshwar Das, who is with us in our studio in Santa Fe, titled Be Love Now, The Path of the Heart. Joining us in the studio along with Rameshwar Das, Raghu, Mitchell Marcus as he's also known, Gopal is in the studio, and Dasarat Ed Marcus. And yours truly, Alan Hutner. I'm also known as Rudaram. Most of you don't know that, but that's part of my name, along with our videographer Bob Keaton in Santa Fe and Ken Sandin in Maui. We will get Ram Dass on the Skype line with us shortly. I want to welcome you all and thank you for helping to create this forum today, and a continuation of the Baba Ram Dass ripple effect. I just like this name because that's the way I felt I was sucked into all this here many years ago. And I would be remiss if I also did not include as part of this cusp gathering Elizabeth's reminder, our co-host who could not be with us today, that it is the fall equinox, a change in season today, a time to rethink, perhaps pray for visioning the times ahead. And so I would offer this up in this gathering as a prayer that Be Love Now continues to create big change in the times ahead. So I welcome you all. You know, you guys are you're the biography of Ram Dass in form here because you know the story, and you were in India with him. You spent all this time. So maybe you start, Ramesh, just giving a little bit of how you see Ram Dass and who he is. Besides, we know he's written a lot of books and created a major transformation from Harvard to Maharaji in India, and then back with Be Here Now. So how do you describe this guy?
Well, I described him, from when I met him in the late 60s, when he had first come back from India. So I didn't know the Richard Alpert side at all, really.
Uh-huh.
So, and what I got when I first met him, which I described in the foreword to the book, was Maharaji. I went to a talk, which I think was the first talk that he gave when he came back from India. And it was in a student lounge at Wesleyan University, where I was still in college. And, I'm expecting the annals of psychedelia. And in walks this guy with a long beard and wearing a white robe. And, I thought that something had happened to academia here that I didn't know about. And he started talking, and after a while, there were maybe 100 people at the most. And people were leaving that didn't really relate to this India scene. Mm-hmm. And someone turned out the lights, and he kept talking, and people were asking questions, and it went on until 3:30 in the morning. And it was one of those shifts that you have described to me also that you had, that was really an internal change in perspective.
And you had this.
That happened to me at that moment.
This is the key.
And Ram Dass was the carrier of that transmission. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. He was the transmitter. And when I got to India, I had that exact feeling that I had that night. That was 3 years later.
3 years later, you got to India. Now, let me pass this on to Raghu here. So, when do you touch into this scene?
69.
69. How did that happen for you? I mean,
Same exact thing happened.
you went to a talk?
I was a program director of a radio station in Montreal, where we're from.
Uh-huh.
And somebody called and said, we would like you to announce that Ram Dass is giving a lecture at McGill University. I said, Ram Dass? What's that? So they said, Richard Alper, Tim Leary. I went, oh, okay. So I loved Tim and Richard and was far into everything they had suggested the years before.
Mm-hmm.
And so I said, but you must have a tape or something. Before I announce this, I want to hear what this is like. So send me a tape of another lecture. So they sent one down to the station, and I went into the studio to listen to it. And I had been into spirituality, TM and stuff like that before, and had heard of Mayor Baba and loved him. And put on, the tape came on, and he started talking in this lecture, and I was just transfixed for an hour. And every word was everything that I had needed to hear and was instantly transformed. Put it on the air. This was a major 50,000 watt station. And the whole switchboard, in the middle of the day, a Ram Dass lecture, and the whole switchboard lit up and people went crazy. And then I went and found him and brought him to the station and interviewed him live and all that. And then started going to New Hampshire and was just broadcasting Ram Dass on this station every day or weekend. It was pretty intense. So,
I forgot you were a radio guy.
yeah. And then I went to, when I finally met Maharaji, just like Ramesh, he came out the doors and I went, oh, shit, that's what Ram Dass was
You
all
went.
about.
You went to India?
I went to India when he told me he was going in 1970, and I went at the end of 70. He had gone a couple of months before, same as Ramesh. And so in meeting him, it was that moment that was exactly what I had felt through him. I realized he was a transmitter. That's what this was. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, and that was the end.
And this guy on your right here, you want to.
This is my dad, who came to India after I was there for almost a year with my brother. And he came because he wanted to see what it was.
Was he worried? Was he worried about you?
Yeah, he just wanted to see what was going on, what we were doing over there for so long.
All right.
And he came over and met Maharaji for a few weeks. Ate peanuts and oranges. That's all he could handle in India. And
no water.
and anyhow, Maharaji transformed him so that he went back later.
So you just told my story.
You can speak for yourself about what it felt like for you in front of Maharaji and with Ram Dass.
I had no idea what I was getting into. I owned an advertising agency, and the kind of life that led was meaningless.
Mm-hmm.
So I was open. And I kept hearing from these guys. And, started to have a pull to go there. So the last letter said, you better come. I get on a plane. I'm not equipped to be in India. And my introduction to him was one of admiration, because I heard he accomplished so many things. And I was looking for so many things. And so I became attached to some of the stunts that he had been pulling.
All right, let's pass this on to Gopal.
He was in the tax business like you.
Really?
Yes, I was a tax lawyer and had just finished school and heard a lecture of Ram Dass's and was quite moved because I found that he was answering questions that I had held all of my life. Mm-hmm. And this was the first time I heard somebody directly addressing those, and it was as if it was that I could say, yes, that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true. It's so wonderful to know that somebody knows this as well. I must get to meet him. And I did.
And when was this?
This was in 1970.
So, and where?
I was in Washington, D.C. at
Washington,
the time.
D.C.
I did meet Ram Dass a couple of months, several months later at the Lama Foundation
Right here in New Mexico.
in northern New Mexico.
Wow.
And at his suggestion, I remember him saying, if you should find yourself in Nainital this summer, just go to the Evelyn Hotel and ask for S.L. Shah and tell him I sent you. Well, I took that as an indication I should do it. So I drove across the country, sold my car, bought an airplane ticket, went to India, and met some devotees. There were probably 6 or so, and they bundled me into a taxi cab the next morning, and we went to Kenchi, and there I met Maharaji. And in that moment, I experienced something that I had never experienced before in my life, which was unconditional love, as Ram Dass has often described and others have. But it was a moment out of time, if I could put it that way. And it was like coming home. And so many of the phrases you've heard other devotees utter are true and apply also to me. So I'm so grateful to Ram Dass because, as Ramesh and Raghu said, it was apparent from the moment I met Maharaji that Ram Dass had made himself had become a transmitter of Maharaji's message. And he had done this, at least in my superficial view, by clearing away a lot of his stuff, if I can put it that way.
Yeah.
He was extremely honest and unflinching in facing his own personality and humanity and getting that out of the way so Maharaji could come through.
Yeah. Well, the same for all of us. I think, that somebody was willing to bare their soul, which he had to do to Maharaji. I mean, when somebody's telling you your whole life story in front of you and you're going, this guy doesn't know me, yet he knows this, that means something is transmittable in the ethereal realm or the ethers.
No, he basically destroyed all mental stuff of everyone who stepped in front of him.
Maharaji.
You could no longer think that the rational mind had any reality. There was no figure ground, nothing. He absolutely crushed that. You knew that he was inside you, past, present, and future. I mean, it wasn't just. He told Ram Dass about his mother, and she died of spleen, which nobody could have known. But in other cases, he said this. He told people what would happen in the future. It was all. He was in the moment of every part of every lifetime, all the way through. It was, and that's what this book, Be Loved Now, is about. It's about the true rudder of what a real enlightened being is, who lives in non-duality and has a thread that allows him to stay in a physical body. There was very few. This is rare. So when you talk about enlightenment and so on, so Ram Dass and Ramesh really give a very, very excellent translation for what that state really is.
Yeah, well, good way to wrap this up because, like I said, in the moments of last night, when fortunately, apparently, I had the first of the uncorrected proofs, I am honored that this came here. Something happened when I read this again. And, some will argue, like the Tao Te Ching, what can be written or spoken is not the true Tao. But I have a feeling this is going to be close. And thank everybody for this gathering. It's been very nice, very heartful. Namaste.
Namaste.